Greetings. Welcome to another broadcast of I Have a Testimony. I'm your host, Brother Willie Muhammad.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Welcome, brothers and sisters, and Assalamu alaikum. So I'm really excited about today's conversation. We're talking about something that's real, something that matters, and that is raising strong Muslim families in today's world. Our theme today is marriage, Islam, and the fight to raise Muslim children, the blueprint, the battles, and the blessings, right? And we're blessed to be joined today by our brother and sister. Let me bring them on. If you're familiar with our Southwest region, you're familiar with our brother and sister here, Brother Isaiah Muhammad and his wife, Sister Melva Muhammad from Houston, Texas. They're going to share their experience, what worked, what was hard, what they learned, and the blessings they've seen in raising children and the teachings. And I look forward, as I know you all do, in hearing what they have to say. Assalamu alaikum, dear family.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
So first and foremost, thank you all again for accepting this invitation, especially on such short notice.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. We appreciate the opportunity. We can help.
Definitely you all can. So I'd like to get straight to the actual interview. So first, can you share with us how long you've been married and how many children you all have raised together? And also, I know this is kind of several questions in one. And as you reflect on your journey thus far, what specific actions, habits, or principles would you say have contributed to the longevity of your marriage and your family? Y'all got that, or I need to go back and say that again?
No, I think she got it.
You can do the second part. Well, we've been married 40 years, and we have 8 children, 5 girls and 3 boys. As you can see, 7 and 8 are twin girls.
Wow.
And then the part that where you said what contributed to the success of the journey, something along that line.
Yeah. What do you say? What actions, what principles, what habits would you all say have contributed to the longevity of your marriage and your family staying strong?
The short answer is that you just don't quit. And we always tell people that, anytime you find a couple that divorce, most of the time, I think at least, there's always a reason in a marriage to get people upset or angry or terminate the marriage. But then there's always a reason to stay. And the ones that are divorced are the ones who focused on the reason that they were upset and angry and looking for a back door out. And the ones that, what I call stayed together, are the ones that focused on the reason to stay. It's just a matter of where you put your attention.
Beautiful. Sister Melva, you want to add anything to that?
No, other than that, I agree.
And it's interesting, Brother Isaiah, you shared that, and I'll send it to you because I know we always sharing information. There's this married couple that they have this thing, they're called the Gottmans, and they do this thing that's called the Love Lab, where over several decades, they've analyzed thousands of families. And one of the things that they said, just like what you just mentioned, is that they've noticed that marriages that last longer are those that focus more on the good things than the things that are troubling.
It's interesting that you even sent us this invitation, because just a couple of days ago, I was in Colorado. I was by myself, and I was just thinking about marriage. And I thought about, and this could be wrong, but this is just what I thought about just recently. I think before you fall in love with the person that you intend to be wedded to, or even meet that person, you have to fall in love with the institution of marriage. And I think that because, and in order to do that, you have to study it, be in line with it, and be committed to the institution, so that even if your spouse is no longer with you, you still are committed to the institution. When I say that no longer with you, I'm saying, let's just say something happens in the way that she passes or whatever, something like that. But you don't, I mean, I don't understand why. And I guess it comes from modeling, maybe what you had modeled to you when you were younger as a child. But I think sometimes people go into the institution with this idea that if this don't feel right, I'm gonna hit this switch right here and get out of this thing. Because my mama did it or my daddy did it 3 times. They was married 3 or 4 times. But you know, I just think that there's that commitment word. When you commit to the institution and you understand the benefits of the institution of marriage, then you can stay with it and stay focused on your goals.
Beautiful.
It might be a little.
No, that is right on. That is right on point, and that's a good segue into our next question. The second question is, you know, what specific methods or routines did you all establish in the home to instill the Islamic principles in your children?
You want to go?
I would say that we just set the best example that we could set. We're Muslims at home and abroad.
That's right.
And so our children, they see that. So we're not Muslim just when we show up at the mosque. We're Muslims at home too. And that's so beautiful. And they know that. And I believe that has worked for us, is that we've demonstrated to them what a Muslim is, what a Muslim looks like. And we practice what we preach at home and abroad. And so they've had the opportunity to witness to that. That's what I say.
Beautiful. Well, Isaiah, you wanted to add to that?
That's probably what I would say, just different words.
Well, good. You know, how do you, when it comes to raising children also, how do you all balance the spiritual development also with their academic and also extracurricular pursuits?
I want to say that. Let me say something about that real quick. And it's hopefully won't completely answer the question, but it'll touch on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And that is, you know, when you showed that picture a minute ago with all of us, when the girls were real young and whatnot, and the boys too, that one right there. Yeah. And we can go back even further. But now I want you to imagine them even younger, maybe before the twins were born, that every time we went somewhere, we lugging 6, 7, 8, 5 children to Savior's Day. I mean, you know, we can't fit in a regular car. We couldn't have 1 room or 2 rooms, you know, even though we had to try to squeeze it and do the finances sometimes. But the point is that about taking all those people to the mosque on Wednesdays and Fridays, and in some cases, because they had homework to do, and you know, then we had to make sure they get home. You know, they got to eat, they got to, you know, get cleaned up, get ready for the next day. It was a lot, but I mean, it seems like the time just blew by almost. So trying to make sure that we stayed together and that everything was done to keep them as a Muslim family, the Muslim children. It's kind of almost like the time was like a blur. We just kept doing the best that we could. We kept trying to keep them at the mosque all the time, because we was at the mosque and nobody was going to watch 8 children for us. You know, so we at the mosque, you know, 7 days a week almost, because even on the days that is not a meeting going on, it was something, you know, that you doing at the mosque. and we taking them with us. It's just something funny the other day. I was in Walmart and I saw this brother and I guess his wife, and they had like 2 children in the basket, two hanging on each side of the basket. He was holding one, she was holding one, and I was counting. I was like, damn, how many children they got? And it was 6. And I was like, man, that's how we used to look when we would go to the grocery store. And I thought that was a whole lot, but they were still too short of what we were, you know, because we never left our children. Our children were teenagers. Our oldest ones were teenagers before we ever left them at home just to go to the store, which is right around the corner. Mm. We would never leave them by themselves. We don't do that too much today. But yeah, so I think that's what it is. We just tried. We
just tried. I'll say this. It's like you said, we were during the week we were at the mosque, and I just can remember before Rashid, because the rest of them had when not born yet, but Wednesday night meeting, Friday night at the meeting, Saturday night MGT Vanguard, Sunday meeting, but you know, and so they learned that and then here come the other ones. It was the same way, but then they all have a lot of grit, and they're hard workers. But they learned that it was part of the home environment that we got to get it. Okay, yeah, we go into the mosque, but we got to get homework done and eat before we go to the mosque. And we know that when we go to school, we have to have good grades. We must know how to behave because we represent more than just ourselves. Now, in the morning times, it would be drama if somebody decided they wasn't going to bathe last night because it's 10 people in the house. And like, where's the hot water? Didn't I tell you to bathe this morning? Tell me how to bathe. So that was like the worst part. Not the worst, but one of the things that always was some drama because somebody decided that they were not going to. A couple of people decided they were not going to bathe last night. But it after a while, you know, we just did what we had to do, and I would just say, hey, we got to go. We got to get your homework done. We got to go to Taekwondo practice. In the summertime, there was really no downtime. They didn't have summers where they were just kicking it and not doing nothing. It was always some kind of camp to go to, or we going to swimming lessons. But so it wasn't time to just not do anything, to get into really too much anything, because we kept them on the go. And
one of the things that I'm hearing from the responses that you all are giving, just how important that home life is, and how what we mirror at the mosque is also mirrored in our homes. And also, like what you were just saying, Sister Melva, the importance of, because I work in the school system, and I realize how oftentimes these children have a lot of idle time. Like, for whatever reason, their parents aren't getting them involved in other extracurricular activities to keep them engaged in something. And as it says, well, idle mind is the devil's workshop. What would you say if you all had any challenges? What would you say were some of the biggest challenges you faced in raising your children in a world and striving to keep them grounded in Islam? And how did you overcome those challenges?
I know my biggest challenge would be patience, you know, and that's probably with people in general. I didn't learn this till later on in life, that I was probably impatient with people, because, you know, I'm always thinking that if it took me this long to get it, it ought to take you that long to get it. And you know, at a young age, I wanted to make sure that all my children knew, you know, mathematics. And so I made them memorize these fractions and percentages when they were young, because I told them that you were going to see these all your life. The first thing that comes to mind, and I was probably a little impatient, because I think one or two of them was trying not to, because I had them recite them back to me. 1/2, 1/3, 1/4, 1/5, 1/8, 1/10, and 3/4. And I wanted them to recite those fractions to me in a decimal and a percentage. I said, just don't worry about you know, how to get them right now. They'll teach you that in school. Just memorize that 1/2 is 0.5 and 50%. 3/4, 0.75, 75%. I said, you're gonna keep running into these fractions all your life. And I wanted them to, but I was a little impatient about them memorizing, because I said, if you can memorize a phone number in a few minutes, you should be able, because these are 7 numbers just like those are 7. You should be able to memorize these. And boy, did I have a fit with that. I mean, we had that was tough that night, because I said, I'm not giving you all day to do this. We're gonna do this before you can eat.
Somebody got popped.
So that was cool.
But you know what, Brother Willie, is that the beautiful thing that happened for us is that our children were able to go to, before the elevated places, there was your university. So our children grew up in a Muslim school.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of the challenges we just didn't have. They were blessed not to be in, I guess, public school, charter school. They grew up in a Muslim school, and all their friends were Muslims, and their
Teachers
parents
were the Muslims.
The teachers went to the mosque, and then all their little friends went to the mosque. So that was the beauty, and it's still the beauty for us, and they're still friends because they all still growing up together. So that's the blessing that we had, is that we didn't have a lot of outside noise because of the school.
Thank you.
The school preserved, prohibited a lot of that. Had it been anything else, it would have been a struggle.
That's 1,000%, bro.
So the school,
that's 1,000%.
The school makes the elevated places makes Muslims.
That's 1,000%.
So we didn't have a lot of those worldly things come in to the home because of the school.
That's right.
Man, it's beautiful. I'm loving this interview because, you know, in your answers, that your responses from both of you all, for me, I'm finding like just certain I can't think of the word, but it's showing certain principles that we have to have. You mentioned the importance of the home, keeping them engaged, and also, like you just said, having them in that environment. So they're in the school is all children and all people who believe like them. And what that begins to do, it begins to lessen. And it made me think about like with Yaqub, how he knew, like, I can't make my man among you all. I'm about to bring him into a controlled environment where I'm the voice. They don't have to compete with people saying, oh, that man Yaqub crazy. No, all they knew is what I told them.
That's right.
And that would, like, in the responses, like, it is showing, if we could just take this interview, it's showing these are some principles that we need to do if we want to increase the chances of us raising Muslim children. Anything y'all want to add before I go into the next question?
I want to underline that, brother, because that, I think more so, I'm almost, if not equal, just as much weight has to be put on that school.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you only with your children for a few hours and then they got to go to sleep or eat, but they at that school doing their alert hours, doing their formative hours. And if that time is in a public school where they doing all kind of madness, you know, they just didn't have the opportunity to get too far because the teachers were the sisters at the mosque. So, you know, if they was cutting up, we already knew. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna see you teaching tonight at the mosque. So you might as well tell me, you know. So it just couldn't go that far. It was that ROPE, the rope to bind them in.
That's right.
Was right there, you know, in a good way.
Right.
So
crazy. And go ahead, you want to say something?
I want to say that, just kind of still on that school, how important it is. And when Rashida is our first child, but we had made a decision while I was pregnant that I was not going to return back to work, that I was going to, you know, take care of her, and I was going to be her teacher, and it just kind of evolved. So I would just say to parents that you got to have intentions. You got to be intentional about what it is that you're doing, but you can't MUI, elevated places, or whatever, homeschool. You have to have intentions, because the minister, Brother Isaiah, says, or whoever said it, I don't know who made this statement, that you can't put a snowball in hell and can't think it's not gonna melt.
That's true.
Our beautiful Muslim children, we drop them off. We say it's the killing fields, but we drop them right off. But that was something that we were adamant about. I didn't always have all the answers, but Allah worked it out. Eventually it all just came together and it worked out. But I knew I wasn't going to do that.
And then I know another key component, it would be you two as a couple being on the same page. So like, what did you all do to be on the same page as it relates to your family and raising them as well?
I let her title the page, number the page, put the words on the page. I just made like I was there.
I just kept them informed, basically. They doing this. I gotta be here, such place. Just informing him of everything. What do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And he pretty much was going to agree. He knew they were in good hands.
Yeah. So my wife is an educator. Before we joined the Nation of Islam, my wife was keeping children when we was over in Germany, and she was keeping children there. And for the most part, I was always used to coming home and somebody else in my house. You know what I'm saying? Somebody else's child is in my house. So when we joined the mosque and basically doing things out of our house and blah, 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 then it was nothing new to us. Yeah, I can't say that I liked it all the time, but I knew how to go and isolate myself and get away so that I could let them use whatever part of the house they needed to, and I can try to, ease my mind from the world that I just came out of from trying to make a living. So I think that I had to have enough respect for what she was doing, which I inshallah, hopefully I did have, and stay out of her way. And she that was her major in college. That's not like she all of a sudden just decided to wake up one day. She was already teaching school. She just flipped the page and started doing for self and doing it for ourself and our children and ultimately the nation.
Thank you. Now, we especially on social media, we're seeing, or I have seen, pictures of young Muslims getting married, right? And the newlyweds and they're newlyweds into marriage, and they're new Muslims. Like, what advice would you give them as it relates to their desire to raise righteous children, and even as a newly married couple?
Well, I'll go back to what I said originally. We have to be Muslims first. If we want our children to be Muslims, then we have to be Muslims, and we have to conduct ourselves as Muslims. We have to be the example. We can't be anything other than that and expect them to be what we want them. We have to set the example. We have to become Muslims at home and abroad. And that's what I would say. Like,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
So like with my daughters, when they see me on Saturday mornings, they know where I'm going. In fact, they leave out before me because they're going to Vanguard class, and I'm right behind them. That's routine. They already know. I was just telling somebody the other day, I can walk through the hallways of our home, and I can hear the minister playing. I can go to each room, and I can hear different children independently listening to different lectures of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I keep being like, what you listening to? What's the name of that lecture? Or I was coming down the hall. It was during Ramadan. It was early. Well, maybe like out of surprise. I was like, what's that? That's making prayer. So when she finished, I walked around to her room. I said, why you didn't tell me? I would have came and joined you. But they have their ear to the minister. So they listen on their own. But that just comes from I think that comes from the home environment. And then we do have a core of believers that we're close to, and they're rearing their children the same way, and we connect with each other, and the children have connected with each other. If you want your children to be Muslims, then you have to be the first example, the first role model.
Beautiful. But Isaiah, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think it goes back to doing a lot of your homework before you choose this person and knowing who you are. And I told my sons, and I probably need to remind them, and I tell other people as well, that as a man, you should be, since you're the one that's going to ask for the sister to marry you, then if you know where you're going and what you need, when I go into Home Depot or Lowe's, I'm not just walking around in there. I'm going in there to get what I need and come out because I know the job that I'm going to do, right? If you intend to do something in life and you know what you need as a wife, the better you know yourself, the better you know what you're going to need. And you can be writing these things down. I tell them to write it down, design your wife on paper. And then you can just hand that to the sister captain and say, can you go find me this right here? Now, you might as well be honest because the truth is going to come out. If you know you don't like, women who eyebrows touch, so to speak, whatever it is, you might well put it on the paper because all that stuff going to come out. You might well put it on the paper. Again, it's about knowing yourself. And then once you have that and you have the right person, then get busy now because it's a contract. I call this the business of marriage. The romance and all that takes care of itself. But the business of marriage, that's going to be, I think, the thing that normally causes couples to break up when you start getting down into, that's how the family is going to be run and the finances and all those kind of things. And what's taking priority when it comes to, do we buy a new car or do we put this money toward our children's education? You know what I mean? Or do we buy you some shoes? Right? So all those type of things, you can discuss that stuff before you get married. And if this person's not the right one, just say she's not the right one. The minister told us, and I'm shut it down because I know we got time. The minister said there's no such thing as equality. So we don't have that. Some of us are shorter, some taller, some fatter, some skinny, some faster, some stronger. So there's no such thing as equality, but we all rendered equal under the law. So I'm not going to be under the illusion that any person is for me. I got to try to pick the best one that's for me, and I got to do that in a mathematical, scientific way. And when I do, then get busy doing what you said you was going to do. Make your word bond. And if you just stay on that course, I don't see how you got time to be, so distracted that I ain't saying that people can't make mistakes. That's not my point. But you should be, when for the most part, when I come home, I'm asking my wife questions about, what happened at the school, these kind of things that are dealing with us. As I heard Denzel Washington say that small minds discuss other people. He said good minds discuss events, but great minds discuss ideas. So we have to be, when we come home, we sitting down eating and we talking about hopefully events and ideas. And only other people that we got to time to talk about is them 8 children. And, how we gonna try to get them through school? Well, who needs some shoes? Who need this? Who got that? So it's just a lot. But when you focus on it, you can get it done.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. You all, you've been married for some time. You've been in the nation for some time. And I know you've seen people court. You've seen them get married. Everything starts off well. Then they seem to go through a divorce. You've seen people who court, get married, go through some difficult things, but they stay married. As it relates to courtship, what are some of the mistakes that you all have observed that some of those who enter into courtship make from your perspective?
Well, I would say that sometimes people think that marriage is a fairy tale and they have a really false idea of marriage. And in the courtship, it sometimes ends up being just having a good time and going here and going down and not getting down to the business and not doing what the minister said, take him to court, take her to court. So we're not really doing that. And so then when we get married, we start finding out things that we probably could have found out during the courtship if we had really followed those instructions about taking him to court and taking her to court and really trying to find out some important things.
Beautiful.
You know, it's so much. You know, it's just so much because first thing that comes to mind is that I think this may sound biased, but a lot of the sisters nowadays, they just seem to be like they have it together. They going to school, they this, that, and the other, but the brothers seem like some of us done bought into this fantasy about being rappers and things like that, and we're not taking education very serious. Right now, those people that said, I'm a rapper, he beating up on the rapper. I mean, you do what you want to do, right? But at the end of the day, your wife / courtmate / the sister that you are going to court with, they have to find something in you that they admire. And if they lose that admiration at any time, that's when I think the women start thinking, or the sisters start thinking that they can do without you. You know? And if you are that person that they admire, which will start with your character and your work ethic, then I don't see why, like when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, make all men and boys join the FOI. And we do that, in my opinion, we do that by becoming irresistible. If you are working on self-improvement and if she admired you when you were at stage A or stage 1, and you've been working on self-improvement and now you're in stage 6, how can she not find you even more irresistible? Well, I don't understand how so many people are so willing to throw the towel in with with the person that you've been married to. Some people been married for years and decide to give up. And I'm saddened by it. I don't like it. I don't like hearing about it. I don't care what happened. And I tell people this, brothers laugh at me sometimes. Brother Brian, I was telling him this the other day. I said, you see that car right there? I said, that's my car. You see my house right? That's my house. I said, even that dog in the backyard, that's my dog. You can't come get my house, my car, my dog, none of that without a fight. I say, so you sure can't come get my wife? How would I look like giving up my wife? I'm gonna fight you for my dog. I'll fight you for my house, but I'm not gonna fight for my wife. I'm not gonna fight for my family. I got to fight to make sure that my sons see an example of a father, the one that I always wanted. I wanted to see an example of a father, and I saw that in Honorable Louis Farrakhan. Now, why would I turn around and not do all I can to show them that example? Don't tell me you're going to do all this here for the minister, and now the very person that gave you children, you could find a way to make excuses about why you're going to stay with the white man. But when it comes to your wife, it's irreconcilable differences.
Man,
and reason to stay with her.
Yeah, and you remember the minister's lecture when he talked about, he said, no sailor embarks on a journey not expecting to encounter rough waters at seas, right? And that's the thing, the more I've performed wedding ceremonies, and I think about, like, even in the very vows, Allah is letting us know you're going to be tested to see if you really mean these things, through rich or poor. And sometimes people forget that, and like what you and your wife said, people are more caught up into this romantic side of it and not getting into building a foundation and all of that other type of stuff. And some people are running from themselves. So, because I'm going to find somebody else, and you're going to run into yourself again. You're going to run into another problem.
Run into problems, yeah.
I don't care who you are. And I tell people before I go to this next question, I said, if like there's this, I think there's this show where there's a couple and they're like little people, but they're confined to, like, some of them are confined to like wheelchairs, but they're a couple.
Yes.
And I was sharing it with somebody. I say, even with their physical challenges, God don't exempt them from having difficulty in their male and female relationship. They still got to go through it, because this is a part of us to show that we make in our word bond. So
I was in the airport yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm sorry, Monday. And I was sitting there waiting on my connecting flight, and then this old couple sat in front of me. Now I'm 62 years old. How old are you? 61?
I don't tell my
Okay.
I
So anyway, my young wife. Anyway, I'm 62, but I said, look, these old people probably been married a long time. So this is a white couple, by the way, which don't matter. But one of the guys, you could tell he had a little something going on with him in the way of memory. And but the other older white man told him he'll sit right here. And then when his wife got there, they had some McDonald's and food or whatnot. And she said, here, put this on your hands. And she gave him a little hand sanitizer. And everybody else rubbed it on their hands. He looked at it. The guy that had a little something going on with his mind, he looked at it and he rubbed it on his burger. On the top of his bun. His wife had to slap his hand. And then she took the burger from him and started picking it off the top. And then told him not eat it. And I was sitting there thinking, now where would a man be where would that man be if he didn't have that wife? And you could tell they've been together a long, long time, And she looked like she just took joy in looking out for him, and he was, just doing the best he could to pay attention. But so was the other couple. They was coming off of some little vacation. But man, what you gonna do when you get old, bro? And you didn't commit to nobody. You didn't commit to nothing in life, bro. Nothing in life. You couldn't commit to yourself. What you gonna do? You'll be sitting up by yourself in some old folks home, and then some of us didn't even commit to our children because you when you left the woman, you left them too. But now you want them to come back and take care of you. You begging for their mercy because they don't even know you.
That's right, man. And that is definitely true. And I'll move on to this next question. When you look back over, your time raising your children, is there anything that you would change or something that you would say, if I had the chance to go back, I would do this differently? And it may not be anything. I just wanted to ask that.
I'll tell you the first thing that comes to my mind.
Being more patient.
Well, yeah, being more patient, but and we'll probably, with my wife, we might not see eye to eye on this, but I probably, number one, I know I would have kept my boys with me a lot more. Number two, because I'm like a mechanically inclined person too. Stuff break around the house, I'm gonna fix it first, right? But none of them, they don't have that. They gonna pay somebody. But I think if I would have kept them with me a little bit more, as opposed to, because one of my sons like to remind me of something I probably said it. He say I said it. I ain't gonna say I did, but I used to. They claim I used to tell them, yeah, if you want to help me, then get out of my way. Go in there with your mama, because I'm trying to get things done. I'll be outside digging in the yard trying to fix a plumbing pipe or something like that, and they, out there playing with the shovel, and I'm trying to make sure they don't hurt themselves, or they want to grab the drill while I'm doing something. I'm trying to make sure they don't hurt themselves, or yada yada yada. But I think the thing that I would try to change, that I would find a way to get them more involved, is mathematics and science. We spent a lot of money on them. They're all black belts, and that costs money, right? We spent a lot of money and time taking them around the country in these tournaments and stuff like that. I think rather than teaching them so much about fighting, I probably would have, if I had to do it again, I would find and focus and spend that money on science and mathematics camps. Because the more I had, quote unquote, semi-retired for a minute, but I'm kind of back in the workforce. Man, it's so many people that the playing field just ain't level. They focusing on mathematics, bro. They focusing on science. And how are we going to build a nation and run a nation with ignorance? You can't do it. You just can't do it. Even if they told you tomorrow that you was free and that you have these states right here, you got to come back to them and ask them, well, how do we build these electrical plants? How do we maintain? How do we generate electricity? Well, how do we mine gas natural gas out of the earth? How do we distribute this throughout our country, our nation? You can't do that with ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, we did focus on education, but I think I would drive it home a little bit more.
I get it.
Level.
I definitely get it. Sister Melva, what do you want to add?
No, I'm sure there's something, but I'll add to this that we spent a lot of money. They went to a lot of STEM camps. They were able to travel out the country and do some Spanish immersions because before Costa Rica and before Cuernavaca, then they went to Costa Rica for a month. And definitely two of our sons are definitely fluent. I think that's a part of their life now. Is that
they watch TV in Spanish.
They find Cubans or Colombians or Puerto Ricans. They find these people, or either they find them. So it's really part of their life. And those two are engineers. So when they travel, one of them, when he travels for work, he's definitely going to be traveling to a Spanish speaking country. So I probably would have pushed a little bit harder on the academics language and tell me, okay, y'all got the Spanish down. It's time to move on, pick up another language. And that's what I would say to parents if I can, is that foreign language is important. Mm-hmm. We got to push. We can't just be people that speak one language.
I want to add one more thing on that line.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to, if young parents right now, I bought a baby grand piano, and I wanted my children to play the piano. Not one of them. That piano sits down there. I had to buy an automatic player and put on the piano because, that is what we did not reinforce, was make them do it until they love it. But music has to be a part of their life. They should play some instrument, right? They should speak. They have to speak Spanish. Well, we in Texas, Tejas. They got to speak Spanish at minimum down here in Texas, right? And as the minister said, because that opens you up to a whole nother hemisphere of the world. The Southern Hemisphere all speaking Spanish. So, and it doesn't matter, what dialect of Spanish that you speak, if you can just communicate. But those two things, I think music helps work the left and right side of the brain, which will help you in other ways that you don't understand, but make sure that they can get involved in something. And I'm not talking about playing music. I'm talking about playing an instrument of some sort, and then that second language. So I would, and along with the science and the mathematics, you can't get away from that. Right. You got to stay there, whether they like it or not. You got to stay there.
Can I say one more thing?
Definitely add.
When our sons were younger, maybe around middle school age, 10, 11, 12, I would always tell them that, you can't be ignorant. You have to get an education because you are going to be the maintainer of your family. You're going to be provided. So you have to get an education now, whatever that looks like. Because, of course, we know there's so many different directions to go in. You don't have to do a 4-year. So they understood that. And so, Rashid has a very successful business, floor business, and the two younger boys, one is an electrical engineer and one is a computer engineer. But so you can't be ignorant. We can't dance, we can't sing. We're not rappers. So you got to go to school and get it. And you got to get it in something that's going to be beneficial. Now when you graduate, you got some worthless degree that you can't do nothing with. So, and so I'm an advocate of that. Look that up. Top 10 worthless degrees, top 20 worthless degrees. You can't pursue any of these. So. That's another, like, as I'm listening to what you all talking about, like I would imagine if I could go back over this interview and come and just write down some practical things that somebody can do, young couples can do, right? And another one that you all just added as it relates to stressing that our children are also like educated, but educated in a real way, because sometimes you can run into somebody who's a Muhammad this and an ex that, and they'll end up, you can leave them thinking that the Nation of Islam is anti-education.
but it's not. You know, the Most High Elijah Muhammad was for education, but it's an education combined with a knowledge of self and an education that's going to help us to do something for ourselves, better our community, and build our own world. And that's the thing. Like I try to stress with the believers here. No, push academic excellence with in your children, because it's going to pay off. You know, it's going to pay off. And so I'll get to this next question. You know, now that most all of your children are over 18, right?
Yeah,
all of them, right? So now that they're adults, how do you continue to offer them guidance while respecting their independence, especially during their walk in Islam? If that makes sense. Look at what I said. Look at this.
There's another saying that I had. It's another saying that I think I kind of. My daddy used to have these sayings that some of them I passed on to my children, but my wife just reminded me of one that my daddy said: "You was born with 2 stripes, 1 you black and 2 you poor. So you can't afford a third one and be ignorant." So he used to, you know, if you wanted to get your behind tore up, with my daddy, you can do a whole lot of things, but don't mess up in school. Oh, you're gonna get your behind tore up. So, that.
But stuff like that, and before you continue with this question, because you just brought something to mind, little bitty things like that, little bitty sayings like that in the home, it sets a standard, right? Like as an educator, I see children where they know that they can go home with a D or a C and their parents are going to be good. Like there was a man on Oprah Winfrey. He, at the age of 98, he learned how to read at the age of 98. And his children, all of them went on to get their college degrees. They didn't know that he didn't know how to read until they were almost in college. And they said when he would come home, he would say, show me what you learned in school today. And they'll show it to him. He'll look at it like he's reading it and give it back to him and say, now explain that to me. But just because they knew when I get home, Dad is going to ask me about what I learned, I got to show him something. It set a standard.
Yeah.
Right. So go ahead. So
now what you just said right there was that he had interest in what they were doing, even if it's school or later on in life. So in terms of your question, as a younger age, and I want to make sure that I make this point about when we dropped the children off at when they first went to the university in college. But I used to always say, and I would tell them, Melva said the same thing, which is, right now you had a benefit of both your parents in the house, so don't you do any thinking. You let me do all the thinking for you.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Before you get up in the morning.
I said, when you wake up in the morning, you ask me.
Don't use your brain.
Don't use your brain at all. I said, you use mine. I said, it ain't gonna do it but make you look smart. And then when people ask you, you can take the credit. I'm not worried about, you know, who get the credit. I said, you take the credit. I said, but sooner or later, it's going to be a time when I'm not around no more. And you ain't going to be able to ask me. I said, but if you have followed my mind long enough, then you'll know what I would do in this situation. I said, but when my mind conflict with what you think, then you ignore what you think. Because I said, but the moment that you can say that I don't love you, then you stop listening to what if you don't believe that I love you, then don't listen to what I'm telling you. I said, but if you believe that I love you, then even though your own mind conflicts with what I'm telling you, do what I say. Right. And when we dropped our boys off at Prairie View, they went to Prairie View A&M University. I told them, up until this point, you've been pretty much under our umbrella. We've always, when we dropped you off with people, they was always Muslims, which means now if you're not using my mind, you could use their mind. If you were under our care and protection, you were under their care and protection. I said, but now we're finna find out what you believe, because I'm not around no more to tell you to go to bed. You got your own dorm room. You can stay up all night. I'm not around to tell you, make sure you don't drink, smoke, do this, that, and the other, go to class. We ain't around now. I said, so if you don't believe in that, we're going to find out. Up until now, you were just doing it because we was forcing you to. But now that you're here, you're not even in the same city with me. I said, but if you don't graduate on time, we're going to find out what you believe. And if your grades ain't what they supposed to be, we're going to find out what you believe. Were you living off of me, off of my mind, or now has it become your mind? And they all went there. Jabbar went there and graduated in, 3 years or less than, I know he did less than 4, but
he started early and he finished.
He started early and he finished early, and Aziz also finished, so he finished on time, but they took care of the business and got out of there. So I said, because anything you want to see, you're going to see it on this campus.
Sure.
And some stuff you don't want to see, you're going to see that too. So now it's time to see what you believe. So they took care of the business. So I'm proud of them for that.
Beautiful.
One of my daughters, I'll just say this real quick, and I won't mention her name. One day she was crying. I said, what is going on? It's just so much pressure in this house. I said, what are you talking about? Everybody's like doing something. It's just so much pressure. I said, okay, well, you can do it too. You know, so and so is doing this and that one is doing that. I just feel like it's just so much pressure. So it's okay. You'll be fine. You're gonna do something too. So don't worry about it. But I just found that so interesting that she she felt that way. So they compete with each other, in their own way, and they also follow each other. So and which is a good thing. So if somebody's doing something good, somebody gonna follow. They think they find that. I had to learn it, so they follow each other. So that's it's.
I want to go back to something real quick, brother.
Go ahead.
And this is going to be in line with that school environment, because our children we try not to ever put them in a situation where a child has to make adult decisions. We had them around adults to make adult decisions for them when they were younger. Adults don't do good at making adult decisions. So when you put a child in that situation, you're almost forcing them to fail. And in public school systems, too many times you got topics going on in those schools and things that they're being exposed to that are really for adults, but they put them in an environment of children, and they should not be in those environments. So if you can keep your child let the children be children, let the children play, let them laugh, let them have fun with each other. And we had enough of them that they could have. We had so many, they had fun in the house. But if you don't have that many, go get your child with another Muslim child and let them be a child. Let them laugh. Let them laugh in Islam. Let them have fun in Islam. Let them do as much as they can. They're gonna be a grown up soon enough. So you don't have to, try to force too much on them. Try to just let them. Children know how to have fun. They know how to do all this stuff naturally. They know how to be creative. And then the other thing, I don't want to end the interview without putting a big underline, highlight, and a circle around the word read. Read. Because you gotta. I heard Brother Minister Jabril, when he came to Houston one time, he said that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we learn through conversation, observation, reading, and experimentation. Core. Conversation, observation, reading, and experimentation. And experimentation is the last way that you want to. You don't want to experience everything, you don't want to experience crack to learn that it's bad for you. You can observe it, you can read about it, you can do everything. You ain't got to experience everything. So don't get the word, the black man learned through experimentation. No. He know how to read and learn too. He know how to observe and learn too,
Exactly.
But that reading exposes us to other minds that we need information from. A white man can be as racist as he want to be. If he put it in a book, then you got access to it now. That's
true. And you don't have to do the experience. He experimented and failed. Warren Buffett said that's one of the reasons why he reads biographies. He says because he can learn within a few hours something that somebody took their lifetime to learn. That's right. And that's the thing. And something, before I go to this next question, in the problem book, when it speaks about how, Musa had 59,999 books and the caveman only had one. We know nobody's walking around with that many books, and we know what that number symbolizes. And when I read that, I wonder oftentimes if Master Farrakhan Muhammad is letting us know that human beings are books, and that's why we can't take this position that we can't learn from somebody, because we can learn what to do and what not to do from somebody.
Yeah. We talked about this at study group one night. not human beings are books, but the reverse is true. Books are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Those books are written,
By human beings.
about, by, and for human beings. And sometimes we make the book more sacred than we make another human being.
Think about that.
So the words can get twisted so easily. So I won't stay on that. But go ahead.
That is definitely true. And I get you, Sister Melva. You want to say anything? You want to add anything?
Well, since y'all were talking about reading,
There we go. We gotta add that.
My daughter said, "Mama, you reading for a punishment." So that's not a good thing. Go read. That's not a good thing. But one thing I did do this right. But I wish that I would have pushed him more, maybe in a positive light. But it wasn't always negative, because in the summertime they always did the library program where if you read 30 books you get a trophy. So we did those type of things. I was just in one of my daughter's rooms, and I looked on her desk and I saw she was reading The Richest Man in Babylon, and then she had The Jewish Phenomenon. So usually when he has a book, he's gonna pass it to me, and then or he gonna tell the children in their group chat, read this book. I read something, and of course somebody got all the Messenger's books on their bookcase. Not that they're just on there; they read them.
Reading them. That's good, and that's beautiful what you all are saying, and I'm loving this interview, and I pray that those who watch it, that they see the benefit from it, because we can really learn. These are principles that we can implement to make us to better the future generations, and Brother Isaiah with the stressing of reading, and what Sister Melva said also, the stressing of reading, and what you all said about like providing opportunities for our children to enjoy themselves as well, right? I talked to a brother Robert from Austin, shared this with me. There was a young FOI who got right to the stage of where it was time to register, and he decided that he didn't want to do it. And so Brother Robert said that he reached out to him and he asked him why, and the brother said that I'm paraphrasing, but the gist of what he said, that he didn't want to serve a religion that's always dominated by fear. Where it's always fear. You got to do this or this is going to happen to you. And he said he didn't like that. And Brother Robert said after talking with him, he was telling the brother, that's not Islam. And that's another thing that we have to have that balance with as well. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes we can end up passing our fears down to our children under the name of God. And it ain't God, it's our fears.
Yeah.
Projecting.
Yeah.
And so let me get to this question. If you want to say something before I go to that?
You was gonna say something about that?
No, go ahead.
Brother Willie, I hope this goes in line a little bit what you're saying. Not about fear, but just letting our children know that it's fun to be a Muslim. Yeah. So I think they did everything, even swimming. So when my daughters, I would take them swimming, we find something with no swimsuit. Mm-hmm. But whatever you have on, you don't put a t-shirt on it, over it, and wear you some knee shorts. And we find the Muslim swimwear on Google. So they swam. They took swimming lessons every year till they reached all levels, because everybody had to know how to swim. I didn't believe in that. Not knowing how to swim. That's not gonna happen. So we didn't use that as an excuse. So they did everything. They went skating, they went bowling, they went to the movie, they did swim lessons.
No, they did everything. And I'm glad that you shared that, because there's some people that don't do that. And I'm just being honest from my perspective. Sometimes I have met some Muslim children and they just seem a little, I don't know the right word to describe it, but you can tell like there's some social, I don't know the word, you can help me out, but it's something is missing. You see what I'm saying?
Absenteeism, yeah.
What do you call it?
No, when you said social, first word came to my mind was social absenteeism.
Yeah, like you can see, like you can tell, like there are things we want to shield our children from, but there's some stuff we go over beyond, and we kind of put them that when they are placed in a place, they just feel lost.
So when the girls took swim lessons, Sister Wakiti's daughter was there. Sister Malika's daughter was there, and some more people. And we even rotated. Okay, today your day. You take them, I'll pick them up, or you stay, because we never left them. You stay, and I'll pick them up, or we would just reverse it. Well, it wasn't the same parent having to stay there while they were taking taking lessons. We didn't believe in that.
Listen,
but we worked it out. We worked it out.
The whole drill team that you see.
Oh, I know.
Right? They really was just doing that. I'm talking about all of the drill team.
I know.
The girls all grew up together.
Mm-hmm.
They were just doing drill to be together.
Mm-hmm.
Because they was gonna be together anyway. And the hours and the time they did put into it, they found something to put to occupy their time. But
and
they
social interaction. Social interaction.
They spent their weekends all together. They grew. That drill team grew up together, and I mean literally, since they was little, able to walk.
They leave school and want to go home with each other. Say, no,
Yeah.
not today. And everybody and all the mothers would be like, didn't y'all just leave each other? No, not today. Y'all going home. Nobody's going to nobody's house today.
Yeah.
That's how we, and that is the thing. And here's the last question I want to ask you all. So what are some of the proudest moments you've experienced as parents? What are some of your proudest moments?
You just gave me one right there, brother.
Mm-hmm.
That picture.
Where you get all those pictures from?
Off of your Facebook page, Brother Isaiah don't have any. I don't know.
Somebody be working.
I don't even use it anymore. Who put those pictures
I don't know how to use it.
You put those up there when, I guess, when you were using them.
Maybe one of my children.
Yeah, they get on your stuff and start adding stuff. But
so, what are some of your proudest moments? You said that picture. What about the picture?
I mean, I'm gonna let her go because I don't want to start going to tears because.
May I see that picture again?
Of course. Here we go.
What's your boy? Oh, that's your boy.
We also, our team found this one too.
Oh my God. We were in Memphis, Tennessee, and we went to the Martin Luther King Hotel. Hotel where he was married. We were in Memphis. My sister.
See that? Everywhere we go, we got little babies that we're carrying and moving around. But I bought a van just so that I could move around where the minister was going. You know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've been in vans all our life. And the last one we had to get that 16-passenger van when the twins was born. People laughing at us when we pull up to the mosque and stuff. But just some of the proud moments are, of course, the children getting registered, graduating from college, graduating from high school. I'm happy when I see my daughters in there, they cooking something, and I know that they gonna put their little twist to it, but I know their mama taught them how to cook. You know what I'm saying? And I know that we have a class, a MGT class that teaches women how to do certain things, and when I see them implementing, or especially when I see them, dressing a certain way, and I know that the people in the streets don't dress like that, and they, behaving themselves, and of course when people compliment or about the way that they behave themselves, or sometimes when the brothers go out to the field, when they need to use Jabbar to do the translation in Spanish and all that kind of stuff, and I'm happy to see that, because that tells us that some of the things that we tried to instill wasn't in vain. And I just wish I could be around to see the end of it, where they gonna go in life, where they gonna go in life, how far they gonna go in life. But I think that at the end of the day, that's the beauty about, you give it your all, man. I didn't hold back.
Beautiful, Sister Melva.
I think that, and there's so many moments, and they have so many accolades. I mean, it's unbelievable how much they accomplished while they were in high school with the elevated classes, and then go on to college and do the same thing. But they had such a strong foundation. Last year, one of the twins graduated from TSU, finance major, and now she works for a tax company. But every day that she goes to work, I don't say nothing other than she's so modest, so beautiful, and they just love her there. At the job, she was the she got runner up for employee of the year. But just after, I don't tell her what to put on. She know what she's supposed to do. And if I see her other than that, then I'm gonna have a little conversation. We're gonna talk about it, like what you doing, where you going. And her, the twin when she pledged Delta, and we went to go to the probate.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, oh my goodness. I said, they about to break my baby back because she's not, she's a petite young lady. But I was happy for her for that moment. She registered, active in the Vanguard, graduated with honors. Now you want to pledge, and I think Brother Isaiah thought maybe that was going to shake her faith a little bit.
Yeah, I wasn't for that, but at the end, I fell in line.
But the thing is, I told him that if they get her in 6 weeks to turn heels, then we never had it. That was my attitude towards it. But their advisor was like, no, she's solid. After she came to a graduation party, she said she's solid. She's a good girl.
Wow.
So things like that, like praise be to Allah. All of it is praise be to Allah. All the accolades, just having good children. Praise be to Allah. Thank Allah for the teachings of the Honorable Elijah.
Beautiful, and I thank you all for taking the time out to be the first couple that we use for this series, because I'm doing this so that those that are coming behind us and those that are there now, they'll have some resource or something that they can tap into. So thank you for what you all shared. Are there any closing words, anything you all wanted to share that you didn't get the opportunity to? So here's the opportunity now.
I'll just say this, and when Isaiah can finish it, I would say if you have, we have multiple children, I would just encourage the sisters to train your children early, because you cannot do everything. My children been knowing how to wash and fold clothes, because I was like, I can't do all of this. They all had chores and certain jurisdictions, around the home. We rotate schedules, but train them early, so that when they get older, they'll know and they won't depart. It won't leave from them. Like Brother Isaiah always say, the truth is in them. So you can't get the truth out of them, because the truth is already in them.
Beautiful. That was good.
I think that families have to, realize that this is a nation, and it's our responsibility. Fortunately or unfortunately, I've had the opportunity to travel to other nations and countries, and nobody, the president or the governor, the mayor, or whatever equivalent, never came to my door and said, hey, let me introduce you to some people. If you don't come outside of that door and meet your friends, then you won't have any friends. And it's no different. It's not a club. It's no different in this nation. You have to move around in the Nation of Islam and meet friends and families, and then you tie families together. And when we tie families together, that don't mean everybody gonna have the same personality, so we all not gonna harmonize like that. That's not what I'm saying. But there's enough people that you can find another family, and because you can't do this by yourself, and your children have to socialize. You need to socialize. So let's be normal, so to speak. Let's not be so weird that we, you in some corner, we have an event and all the Muslims in the corner.
Yeah.
Learn how to use the social skills and make the children know how to socialize. We have to restrict them, but give them an opportunity to be children. Let the children play and have fun. So.
Beautiful. Thank you all. May Allah continue to bless you all, and I really appreciate you all taking the time and sharing what you all have shared about your lives and your family. So, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, sir.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And for those who are watching, we thank you all for tuning in. We ask that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you share this particular interview. So this is your brother Willie Muhammad, and we're signing off. But I have a testimony. Peace.
To walk with that man, brother, is to walk with God.
I got that from the Nation of Islam.
He said the right thing with me that just shook me. It shook me.
Ask Allah for something big.